What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and oh my god, I have some things to say about Godzilla versus Kong. Now, look, I'm going to talk about the positives of this movie first. I want to start off by saying I didn't like this whatsoever. And this is going to, I said this on Twitter, I'm honestly going to say it here. I know this is probably not going to be a very popular opinion. I'm prepared to lose subscribers. I'm prepared to lose Twitter followers or anybody that wants to leave because of this. But I got to be flat out honest. This movie, I can't believe it. I can't. Now, going with the positives first, the fighting was fantastic. I think when you go see Godzilla vs. Kong, you were probably expecting that, fighting. Well, if you were expecting it for more than 20 minutes, I feel sorry for you, and I should feel sorry for myself because I thought there'd be more than 20 minutes of fighting as well. I'd love to know the actual, I'm just estimating, I would actually say it probably comes under 20 minutes of them battling each other, or even, if we want to stretch it, battling anything. If you count Godzilla or Kong fire, shooting or like pounding or whatever ability the two possess, I would say it probably comes under 20 minutes. Which, obviously the other movies had that same problem. Godzilla 2, King of the Monsters, that one was a lot better, I think, of elevating Godzilla, and I thought this one would kind of go full force. It didn't, in my opinion. The fighting was really, really good in what they did with it, but it was just not present very often. I will say, in terms of characters, the little girl, pretty darn solid. Her mother, I believe her name's Rebecca Hall in real life, she was a pretty good actress in this. Skarsgård, he was pretty solid in this in terms of acting. He had next to no role or purpose in this movie, and that leads me to the biggest problems that, honestly, I can tell you are the only positives of this movie. It looks pretty. It looks nice when the monsters are fighting in these very cinematic areas. It definitely looks cinematic. It looks high budget, all of that good stuff. And again, it's important to note that it's called Godzilla versus Kong. So if you're judging it based off of the fighting, you're saying, well, is the fighting good? Would I enjoy it for the fighting? Yeah, but look, I'm seriously, I don't know how to make it more brutally honest to you, and it's just my opinion. If you guys don't agree with me, it is completely cool. I truly hope you guys respect that it's cool and respect that we can have difference of opinions, because I know a lot of people that follow me are very much into this movie or are excited for it, and this may come to a shock that I'm so kind of anti it. Everything else was, I would say, borderline terrible. Whether it be characters that had zero purpose in this movie, or I don't know, you can really go down the line from there. Characters that were trying to be comedic relief, but you group a couple of them together. A lot of just basic issues of like, well, why did this happen? What's gonna happen next? What's this? Why is that? Those kind of questions. And I'm gonna keep it spoiler free for the first couple minutes here, and then we'll talk about some actual spoiler stuff. But I think to sum it up, that's pretty much it. Characters, humans, awful, god awful. There's very few that actually leave a mark on you whatsoever. And here's what I'll say, and this could still be spoiler free. What people will say, and I've heard people say this, I know Jay, Degenerate Jay, he said this, and I understand it, I agree with it, but you could do it better. You'll say, or they'll say, that you need the humans to drive the plot, because these creatures cannot talk. So to create plot, to create stakes, to create a goal, an end goal, any of that stuff, you need communication, because literally there's no other way of doing it. And I agree with that. I would say there's still a way of doing that while giving the monsters the entire show. Or like by show, I mean like giving them the entire thing. And that's not what they do here. They're in the movie, but they're not, I don't know, like they're just kind of there for set piece fighting. And I guess I get it. That's the whole point of them. They're not supposed to be some insanely deep monsters, but you kind of have to pick and choose. You either make, I guess, the entire movie like super cheesy and stupid, and you can have them fighting and duking it out and all that stuff, which they don't do because they try to take it very seriously and they try to incorporate all these elements, or you go full serious and you have the fighting probably the way it is right now, and you just get good characters, and maybe you give them a little less to work with in terms of like, don't make them the central idea of the entire movie. It's tough to talk about this movie without going into spoilers, so I'm going to leave it there. I didn't like this movie. I like the fighting parts. I like 20 minutes out of the hour and 45 hour. I think like without credits, without the ending, without the end credits, I think it's like an hour and 47 minutes. And there's about 20 minutes, I would say, of fighting, somewhere around there. Even if you want to stretch it to half an hour, that's still, in my opinion, nowhere near good enough. The other 2/3 or 3/4, even if you want to go like 75% of the movie, is awful plot, awful coincidences just happening, these characters that are just god-awful. And I thought the characters of Godzilla King of the Monsters was bad, like the humans. No. This beats it. And this beats it. Some of the characters, including the villain, the lady, which I don't care about any of these characters, so I don't know their names or any of that, because they're literally so forgettable, and that's how you know that they're bad. That lady was probably one of the stupidest villains or characters I've ever seen in a movie. These characters aren't necessarily as like brain dead, like literally stupid, but they're more useless. They're more, convenience purposes, or they're there just to be there for like something to happen, or like a coincidence is going to happen with them, like you know that. So they're more worthless as like human beings versus idiots. And I would say that's kind of the difference. If you want to know the difference between the characters of the two movies, there it is. All right, we're going to jump into spoilers here. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the spoiler section. Very nonchalant, very very casual switching of it. Look, it comes down to why do they do certain things in this movie. It also comes down to predictability. Those are some other things that I think you can talk about with spoilers. The whole Mechagodzilla, of course, it was teased. Of course, it was, I guess, leaked out there, if you want to call it that. Like they kind of accidentally let the cat out of the bag. I mean, the second you see them and you see what they're doing with Millie Bobby Brown, like all of them, which, by the way, those characters are awful. I think she is okay, but her friend, her high school student friend, is like, he's there for comedic relief, but so is the other guy, the podcaster, like the conspiracy theorist funny guy. He has moments where he's like, he throws in a one-liner that works, but I'd say 85% of the time he doesn't work. And it became, I think, blatantly clear their entire purpose was just to get to Mechagodzilla, and then when that happened, they would be the ones to save the day. Okay, self-edit here. My wife reminded me and said, did you mention this part? And I said, no, Christy, I didn't. So I have to throw this in here. This part I laughed at. This part I told her, and she completely agrees with me. How in God's name did the Three Stooges, which is what I'll probably call them here, the Millie Bobby Brown, and then the two other people that I don't know any of their actual names in this movie, but I noticed this as it was happening. They walk into one of the most secure places in the entire planet, okay? They walk in, they go into a classified elevator, go to floor 33, exit, they go into a pod that's containing literal monsters in like egg form. They go through like super speed, like they go into like hyperspace, okay, in Star Wars. They go to, from Florida, I believe it was in Florida, to Hong Kong in however many hours that took. They exit, and by the way, in all of this, nobody catches them. There's no cameras, there's no security for some of these very like expensive and classified things and places. There's nobody there to monitor them. They get out. They go into like an arena where Mechagodzilla is practicing his abilities on this bat creature that comes out. They are on the ground, running around like lunatics. They're literally screaming like morons, running around like with the chickens with their heads cut off. They still don't get caught, even though the heads of Apex are in the glass thing above them watching the experiment play out. They don't get caught. Nobody sees them, even though they're screaming, running around, and the bat attacks them first, and Mechagodzilla picks him up to kill him. So, like, were they not watching the bat thing? Were they watching Mechagodzilla? Because you would have been able to see them. Then they go into another highly classified room, and then they get caught. Then they turn around. They're in, like, a glass room, and there's just workers looking at them. And it's like they could have been there for, like, 20 minutes. They could have just been watching them the entire time. That's when they get caught. Oh my dear freaking God. How stupid can this movie be? End of self-edit. So I thought, because the movie seems very predictable, and it kind of is, I thought that they would be able to, that they would literally hack it to disable it, okay? Now, obviously some things went astray, and they ended up killing, or I guess, well, yeah, it did end up dying, but they ended up slowing it down by pouring alcohol in like an event, and that's what literally broke the security lock on Mechagodzilla, which basically paralyzed it for about 3 seconds, which gave Kong the upper hand for 3 seconds, in which Kong just absolutely destroyed it, okay? So without those humans, they literally all would have died. I guess whoopee, but at the same time, like, that is one of the stupidest ways of handling a situation that I could ever have thought of. And it's just, it's just cliche after cliche after predictability. Again, the characters are terrible. None of them have a purpose. They go to Skarsgård's character because they need him to go to Hollow Earth. And he says, well, I know a scientist, a girl who worked with Kong. And then she's like, well, this deaf girl, who, by the way, is the best character, she has this special connection, almost like otherworldly, which we're not really gonna like focus on, but we kind of are, and she can communicate with Kong. When in reality, he can just do sign language, and he just doesn't tell anybody until he tells everybody on the ship in the beginning of the movie. He always was capable of sign language. I guess maybe they did it to him. He never, like replicated it back to them, but he does it to the girl in front of everybody, and they're like, oh, he knows how to do sign language. Well, that's cool. That's like cool information to learn. So that happens. And the whole point is to get to this Hollow Earth to find some sort of like mass power, okay? And obviously the bad guys are using it to, I guess, just charge up Mechagodzilla, which is just, the girl that was there, his daughter, that the Apex leader, whatever his name is, which again, I don't care. His daughter, again, not a bad actress or anything, but her point for being there was absolutely zero. She had a couple throwaway lines. She was in like the back of the group for most of the time. And then her role was extract part of the material, kind of just beam it to this lab. I don't even know how that happened, okay? Beam it to the lab, have them replicate it in Mechagodzilla, and then she turns on them, literally just a snap of the fingers, and then they end up dying. And that's it. That's literally her role. And that, it's like, it sounds so simple and so just not... There's no character arcs here. That's kind of what I want to say, too. There's absolutely nothing that these characters do that has an actual arc to them. They're the exact same in the beginning of the movie as they are in the middle of the movie as they are in the end. Even that girl, I guess I would even consider her more of the villain than her father, because the father just had one evil monologue as Mechagodzilla was like gonna kill him. That cliche, kind of like, oh, the villain is right behind you, but you don't notice it. They literally did that in this movie. Again, stupid, but like, that's what you have with these characters. You know that they're bad, and the movie is actually to blame for that, because they make it known literally in the beginning of this movie that clearly there's some sort of technology that this Apex, this group, it's the corporation's name, is working on that's upsetting or calling to Godzilla. And you find that out in the first like 3 minutes of the movie. That kind of spoils the entire thing. It literally answers the question, okay, is Godzilla good or bad? Well, he's actually good. It's just he's being called, basically. And you find that out right in the beginning. Then you find out there's a bigger threat than him, kind of in the middle, maybe the early middle of the movie. Again, these are things that just kind of one up. Another thing I want to mention, too, is Kong is a loser the entire movie, except for the ending, because he constantly, I said loser, he constantly loses. And again, Team Kong, Team Godzilla, which one are you? It doesn't really matter at this point, right? But, he's not as strong as Godzilla. We all, I think, are aware of that. It's very apparent in this movie that he's clearly the weaker one. But, like, when he needs help facing even, like, lower-level monsters, which he does face, and he needs human help in order to beat them, it's kind of pathetic. It's like, okay, well, like, you're just there. You're not even, he's not even, I would say, shown off as being very strong. A thing that annoyed me very, very greatly was basically his axe, right? The kind of scale of Godzilla, or like whatever you want to call it, the thorn. But like, it was powered by Godzilla's breath thing, okay? And this is like a small little thing that I noticed that I was complaining about to my wife. I'll complain about it to you guys too. It makes no sense how the thing works. It gets powered up by Godzilla's like beam, but it like has a mind of its own when it wants to deactivate itself, because it charges up several times when Godzilla and Kong are fighting. Then when Kong hits Godzilla with it, it loses its spark. It literally deactivates itself. But he only hit him one time, and he got it charged up kind of a lot. Fast forward to the end of the movie with Mechagodzilla, Godzilla shoots his beam at the axe very briefly, way less than he did when he was fighting Kong. And Kong uses it like to hit Mechagodzilla like 6 times and destroys him, and it still has energy in it even to the point when they stand back up because Kong thinks Godzilla could still be a threat, he picks up the axe, it's still glowing, and then he drops it as Godzilla leaves, and it deactivates itself. And again, this is I guess a small thing, but it's like these things where it's like, well, why? Why? Why does that work? Why does pouring alcohol in a vent, why does that deactivate the security lock on Mechagodzilla? Does it make any sense? No. And then you could say, well, it doesn't need to. I would argue, again, going back to the very beginning of this video, it does need to, because when you have a movie that, yes, you could say, well, it's focusing on Godzilla versus Kong. Well, when they fight each other for 10 minutes, and the rest of it is not them fighting each other, the movie does have to be like an actual movie. It needs to make sense, it needs to connect things, needs to have a plot, needs to have arcs. And so when the movie doesn't do that, but relies on them fighting, but gives you them fighting 5-10% of the entire movie, that's not a recipe for success. That's actually how you do something really terribly. So that's kind of where I stand with this movie, is it wants to be a monster fighting movie, which is what all of them have, I think, tried to do. They want you to focus on the monsters. The rest of it's awful, but then they still don't give you enough of these two fighting each other. So disappointed is one word. I would say actually shocked. Shocked is a better word. I haven't been the biggest fan of any of the monster movies, the first three leading into this. I was going into this with easily the most hype of all four, okay? And this one let me down the most by a mile, okay? It had the biggest, I guess, potential and promise, and it easily kind of just left all that to die as much as you possibly could. So I could go on forever. I was thinking about making this like the longest review or one of the longest videos that I made. So I'll stop myself there because I'm just getting myself more worked up. Bottom line is this, and this is not related to the movie. If you guys disagree, I totally respect that. I want to hear what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, if you agree with me, if you disagree, all that stuff. Let me know in the comments. We'll have a good discussion about it, you know, when I read them. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed, bell icon turn on, all that good stuff. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully I didn't lose you. Hopefully you're not going to unsubscribe. You're like, oh, too big of a hot take. I can't take it. Hopefully that's not you. If it is, sorry. I'm terribly sorry, but at the end of the day, I have to speak my mind, and this movie was just shocking to me. I hope to see you all on the next video.